It's just about 6 o'clock, so welcome everybody to tonight's community meeting. For those of you that don't know me, I am Andrea Smith. I'm the Director of Planning and Development. Sorry, I have to kind of go back and forth between here and the computer this evening so that hopefully those attending online will be able to see all of you and hear us. So if you are speaking at any point this evening, do try to speak up. I have tried to point the microphones into the audience so those attending remotely will be able to hear your comments. I did want to take a minute to introduce Mayor Mike Tooley, Councilor Dan Scamperly, and our city manager at the rear here, Fonda Cronus. Thank you for joining us this evening. We also have a number of strategic planning committee members that are here tonight. And instead of introducing each of you, if you just want to give a little hand wave. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your participation to get us to where we are this evening. It's been really lovely to work with you all, and I'm happy to kind of showcase the work that we've done since March and hopefully get feedback from the rest of you on where to go from here. So I did want to start with a brief overview, which is going to take me a little bit away from looking at you. So for those attending online, I apologize if you don't see me when I do this, but I wanted to give a quick rundown and overview of the presentation that I gave on Monday to introduce tonight's public meeting to the public and encourage them to come, which gives an overview of what the city has been doing since 2017 up till today. So just bear with me while I'm kind of back and forth, and sure, if you'd like to do that. That would be great. Okay, ready? I am. So, so this is the presentation I gave on Monday night's council meeting to, again, just kind of give an overview of projects that the city has been working on since 2017. So next slide. So this is also available in the handout section for those that are attending remotely, since the screen's a little wonky here and you can't see the whole thing. In 2017, the city received a $500,000 Restore New York grant for the demolition of 17 Main Street, which is shown here in yellow, and also just off of the screen 420 Lafayette Street. Next slide. In 2019, we received funding to do the rehabilitation of our waterfront park following the damages from flooding in 2017 and 2019. And this project here in blue was an $8.5 million project. And in 2019, we also at that same time received funding in the amount of $2.5 million, excuse me, to do repairs and renovations along the city's Maple City Trail, and that's also highlighted in blue there. And those two projects were completed in 2023. Also, through the READY program, the Fort La Presentation Association received $1.2 million to stabilize their shoreline and complete some projects associated with their outdoor trails and historic interpretation, and that was also completed in 2022. Collectively, these projects are just over, well, $13.6 million in overall implementation of projects starting from 2017 and being completed through 2023. Next slide. Just this summer, I'm going to highlight a few of the grant applications that we submitted next. Next slide. The first is a 2024 New York Swims grant application that was submitted seeking $3.1 million to support renovations to the city's pool area, and highlights in that application are to address and improve handicap accessibility, improvements and renovations to the bathhouse to include mechanicals and locker room upgrades, the integration of a splash pad and shade structures. And just for reference too, that is an 80-20. So what that means, that's 80% grant funding, 20% city match. We also submitted a green resiliency grant application in the amount of $3.5 million, and that's for the area shown in green. This is to reduce the pervious pavement, the asphalt surface there, which is just over 5.5 acres of asphalt parking lot, to reduce stormwater runoff, to reduce combined sewer overflows here in the city. And that project is a 90-10, so if awarded, that would be 90% grant funding, 10% local match, and that was submitted in August. It also includes the renovation of 212 Ford Street, where we recently completed the demolition of the former Newberry's store, and that would create a pocket park, a multi-use pocket park in downtown in that particular area. In July, through the CFA process, we submitted an application through the New York State Main Street Technical Assistance Program, seeking $26,000 to develop design guidelines for what we have determined to be the Old Town or historic Old Town, and that's the area highlighted in pink. It's roughly Isabella Street, sort of the intersection of Ford and State Street, from Isabella Street to Franklin Street. And so we should hear on that grant by the end of the year, hopefully. And collectively, those three projects are $6.6 million of pending grant applications. So, next slide. So where are we going next? I realize this is a little difficult to see, but also highlighted here is the historic downtown area. In the earlier spring, in about late April, early May, we did a call for submissions of projects in the downtown area to try to see which property owners were interested in doing projects, who had ideas to develop projects in downtown. Based on that initial feedback, we've delineated this Old Town historic downtown area, which is ideal for a New York State Main Street program based on the projects that property owners submitted. Those projects include facade improvements and smaller scale renovations to commercial and mixed use space. So this is an application that would be submitted in July of 2025 and actually implemented in 2026 if it were awarded. Next slide. We also acknowledge that we have other centers of commerce that may not quite meet the definition of of a full DRI or Downtown Revitalization Initiative application, but there are other programs, including the state's New York Forward program, which focuses on smaller, walkable, less dense geographical areas with amenities that serve the immediate community. And here, this slide illustrates three potential areas that could benefit from a future New York Forward application. Also, New York State Main Street is another good program that could benefit these particular areas. This is the intersection of Canton Street and State Street, the south end of Patterson Street, and the lower Ford Street area between Seymour Street and Berry Street. Again, it's not an exhaustive list, but just an illustration of where we have some other known areas of clustered businesses. Next slide. In addition to these areas of commerce, the city has also dedicated significant resources to our brownfield properties, specifically the two that are shown here, the former Diamond National and Shade Roller property to the west, and the former Augsbury properties to the east. And really what we're trying to do here is to build the market and demand to support the redevelopment of these catalytic waterfront sites through investment in our downtown and our existing commerce centers. So we haven't forgotten about those. We hope that through the work that we're doing today, that it will really build the market for those eventual development of both of those brownfield areas. Next slide. So that kind of brings us to tonight and the discussion about where would an investment of $10 million in the city of Ogdensburg make the most transformational impact. That is the question that the DRI, or the Downtown Revitalization Initiative, poses to communities across New York State. New York State does provide a framework for which communities are provided to help guide the definition of a downtown area. And those focus on that it must be compact and walkable and have the ability to support dense mixed-use development. So again, a little hard to see here, but what is highlighted in red is an area referred to as the Marina District. And that is a term and a defined district that comes out of the work that the city did through our Brownfield Opportunity Area Planning in 2016. And this is the area on the west side of the Oswegatchie, roughly from Route 68 to the Spring Street Bridge, and from the river to New York Avenue. It's approximately 60 acres. It's approximately 60 acres consisting of about 150 parcels that's composed of both private properties, not-for-profit properties, vacant properties, as well as properties that can be redeveloped. And based on the projects that were submitted again through our open call for projects, the projects that have been identified early on are in excess of $14 million. So next slide. So this kind of brings us to where we want to go tonight, which is to start to hear from the community on what you all would like to see as the downtown. And when you think about downtown, for those of you that have attended here in person, there's, in addition to the agenda, there's a handout, and it asks you to describe Ogdensburg today, as well as the downtown that you'd like to see in 10 years. So 10 years from now is 2034. And so that's kind of the framework that I'm asking you to kind of put yourself into today. And this evening, when we talk through where you think the city could most benefit from an infusion of $10 million. So, does anybody have any questions about the work that we've done and the work that I just kind of covered before we kind of jump into the crux of the meeting this evening? So I know that the council chambers is not very conducive to interaction as conducive as other areas of the city, but it does afford us the ability to allow people to attend remotely. So please don't feel like you have to stay seated. You're welcome to come up and look at the maps and certainly complete the handouts. But this evening I wanted to start with a strengths, opportunities, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats exercise to help get everybody thinking and hopefully participating. A SWOT analysis helps to develop recommendations and strategies based on a review of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats identified by you all. So first, I guess I was hoping that maybe I can have a member of the steering committee who can come and maybe make some notes on that map. There's pens, markers over by the maps. This is Joanne, everybody. Joanne is a member of our strategic planning committee, and this is Kearney. Kearney, thank you for helping me. This one might be easier to write, but it doesn't much matter. They're both the same. So we'll start with strength, and don't everybody speak at once. So what does everybody think when you think of the strengths of Ogdensburg, and think about maybe what our most marketable resource is, what are our greatest advantages, what's working well in Ogdensburg? And I don't know, yes. I don't even have to.
How about locations? I mean, right on the St. Lawrence River, we are right next to the International Bridge. So location.
Perfect. So location, great. Oh, that's fine. It's just for waterside location. There's no wrong or right answers, by the way. It's just
history and culture.
The Remington.
This is more off to the side. Are these things that the initiative they do, they have to be for the benefit of the people in Ogdensburg, or could they be for the benefit to draw people to Ogdensburg? Is there an excuse? Is anyone either of those excluded or both of them?
No, certainly we want to benefit the residents, but we definitely want to bring people into the community for sure. So
the initiative one can go with some drawing the magnet side of things, right?
DRI funding, maybe if I'm getting your question right, DRI funding can actually support marketing type projects, branding type projects, but funding would be limited to the boundary and projects within the actual boundary.
Yeah, good question. Who owns that Ogdensburg property? Does the city own it, or we get purchased from them in way?
The former Ogdensburg properties actually consist of 3 parcels, and they are not owned by the city.
So we get purchased them to do anything.
Well, hopefully we wouldn't purchase them. I don't think that the goal is always to have the private sector do the development. But we want to encourage and foster development on those properties, as well as others.
So who owns that, do you know?
Yeah, I do. So the parcel furthest to the west is owned by MCYC LLC. The property in the middle is owned by Kiwanis, the Kiwanis Club of Ogdensburg, and the property to the east is under the trust of Dr. Seymour Bronstein under his LLC, which is it'll come to me, but that's where that is. So they're all 3 privately owned.
So maybe that's a weakness, is that there's privately owned property on our waterfront that is not being developed or appears to have no development plans. Maybe that's a weakness.
And did you have a comment, ma'am?
Do we know whether it's so contaminated that it can never be developed?
So in terms of the Ogdensburg properties, the city has worked with all of the property owners to do environmental investigation to determine what contaminants are present and the extent of the contamination. So there is quite extensive environmental information available on all 3 parcels. The DEC is actively engaged in conducting a cleanup on the Kiwanis parcel, which is in the middle.
And the strength, I think, the history. Particularly, I must say, the bootlegging history.
Yeah.
Piggyback off that, our history, French and Indian War, War of 1812, war right up through rivals, Boston's rivals anywhere. We need to really capitalize on that as well. And as far as the river goes, I mean, we're right at that confluence. That's, most places don't have that. Even something simple as a sandbar out there is a draw. We have so much rich richness, how's that?
Perfect. Yes.
Actually, our half like Canada, foreign country, the French, and at least one of the. Somebody said fishing. And the port presentation. That ever comes along, you know.
Yeah.
Louise is aging, very old housing stock. And not a nonprofit. Or appropriate.
Options.
So it's affordable, but it's way unbelievable. Yeah.
Amazing architecture.
Yeah.
Moved on because.
I was just going to say, at the next appropriate sort of pause, yeah, we can certainly move on to weaknesses. Although if somebody feels passionate about a strength, just make sure to differentiate as we go forward. So weaknesses, what amenities are we lacking? Where are we struggling? How can we overcome these? Maybe no one needs definitions for weaknesses, but yes.
Here's another gallery. So the question can be displayed at once.
Okay. Yes.
I'm an alien. I'm from Canada. I lived here 25 years. I came in 1998. 25 years at Ogdensburg. In my opinion, this city has never been so desperate as it is in 2024. I came here as a minister, so be it. I'm not a minister anymore. I'm a human baby. But anyway, I never lived in such a divided community in my entire life. In my entire life. I've lived in Canada, lived in near Albany, I've lived way in the boondocks. I've never lived, and that is a problem. And I need to hold my horns. I'm the devil maybe. I need to hold my horns, but so does some of the rest of you. And we need to lay down, the Bible says, lay down your swords and beat them into plowshares. The only way anything is ever going to happen in this city, in my opinion, which is not worth my well, we're at the all same. But anyway, the only way under the sun, moon, stars, whatever, that Augsburg will ever go forward, like here 25 years, it's been in continuous supply, regardless of who the mayor is, regardless of this, regardless of that. I told them I came here. It's true. Most people in Augsburg, not to be clear tonight, do not want anything. They don't want new business. They don't want this. They don't want this. They don't want working. They don't want this. That's, to me, the biggest problem in the city.
Community spirit is.
It's interesting. One of the strengths that we might have said was the amazing places you can live for almost nothing. The homes, the houses, not the great architecture on the houses out there. But the fact that you can have a 4-bedroom house, you know, on land for, you know, in reasonably good condition for $100,000 to $200,000, and that's at most. You get it for 50 and fix it up. You know, And I think that has been a stopper in the sense that I think there's a lot of people who realize that if we make Ogdensburg what it could be, should be, whatever, that's gonna disappear. Now, we might all profit along with it and be able to do more anywhere we want, but I don't think there's a lot of recognition of that kind of. Anyway, in my opinion.
Lack of residential new build, because there's a lot of funding behind that, if we can demonstrate that new build is occurring in the area. So that is a weakness.
Yes.
I'd like to address this question of the bicycles. I didn't get a sense of maybe what you were saying about what two sides, three sides.
Okay.
Not too much detail.
No, there's 11 Christian churches, including one outside, sorry, there's 11 Christian churches in the city, plus outside the city. And I've never, in my life, ever lived in a place where there's so much backfighting, and so much distrust, and so much judging, so much misjudging. I've never lived in a place like that in all my life. And the Christian church is not going to provide all the answers, but I think it can provide some of the answers. I think, I don't say which mayor I lived at. In his closing meeting, he got voted out. He gave the city of Ogdensburg Fire Department a 7-year contract with astronomical raises. We can't afford that. We can't afford that. And the next mayor trying to break that is impossible. We have a new mayor, he's still caught in that bind. And things will change quickly in that. That's all.
Poverty, there's considerable amount of poverty in this area. I would say that's.
And poverty makes all of this irrelevant for those people. I mean, they need to see the relevance in what we're trying to do, and they can't. And that's why you will see Seaway Festival is affordable for everybody. You see crowds and crowds of people out for that, and not anything else in this town, because they can't afford anything else. So they don't see the relevance that's there, and that's a big part of it. And we do have a big drug issue. I mean, every other place does as well, but it's that level of I'm struggling to survive. It's survival level, and they can't see this, and that's a big thing.
Sorry, I may have been ignoring you.
I just wanted to add strength. I think the strength is really the recreation and sports. We have a really like good reputation in athletics, and like very active youth sport. That's a strength.
How long does the project going to take to get those ahead? 10-year project?
No, so a little later in the meeting, we'll talk specifically about projects and process, but so projects that are submitted through our, so this is really the pre-application stage, even though I always refer to it as the application stage. So we will submit an application, and if we're selected, a chunk of money, $350,000 off the top, goes to a consultant that the state of New York selects for your community, who will come in and help us develop a strategic investment plan. And so it's kind of taking all the work that we're doing to put our application together on steroids, focused on the area that is in our application, focused on not only the projects that were submitted in our application, but anybody who owns property within the district. And then really working that through, developing a plan for implementing those projects over a 5-year period. So projects that are submitted need to be able to break ground within 2 years and be completed within 5 years.
So we need some vision, not just what's going to happen tomorrow. It's 10 years out, 15 years out impact.
Correct. So maybe that's a nice, oh, go ahead.
I'm just looking at a weakness. I think lack of promotion of all the good things that we do have. I don't think we've really promoted ourselves.
I think we need a rebranding in the city.
You can speak up too.
I just did.
Don't feel like you can't contribute. I appreciate your help very much. So maybe we'll transition to opportunities. Opportunities, what are the emerging trends that we can take advantage of? What are our marketable opportunities? How can we leverage our strengths? Yes, you like to start us off every time.
Bootlegging early on, the history of the city and, coming from a much larger population, speakeasies are very popular, right? And so if we were to find locations where it actually occurred and have a speakeasy in town, I think that would be very popular and attractive.
I think low-cost housing is an opportunity to draw people into this city who, I mean, I know a bunch of people who moved here just for that reason. So it may be a weakness, but it's also an opportunity to catch.
Yes.
I think one of the opportunities is to look a little bit beyond and make this place attractive to young people who want to start businesses, which we've done over a while, there's a wealth of young, intelligent, bright, probably anxious people out there. And I think we should try and think about what would be attractive, keep them in this northern area and have them come to Ogdensburg to start whatever lives or to be whatever life.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great suggestion. And I just want to comment, as part of our outreach for this application that we're working on, we will be having some engagement opportunities specifically with the youth of the community. So we'll be doing some outreach with the students at the high school as well as the kids at the Ogdensburg Boys and Girls Club. So I'm excited to hear what they think Ogdensburg needs, and because you're right, I mean, that is really the future. We want to find ways to keep them and bring them back. So. Yes.
You know, a lot of the areas that I've been to all over the United States, actually all over the world, where there's waterfront, they actually have commercial water. And so we are missing out on that. You know, I'm trying to think waterfront on the St. Lawrence and Ogdensburg. What do we have? Not the river, not the
St. Lawrence River.
International water. We are missing it. So that is a huge job. One of the most common things I see on a lot of the social media around here is people coming from out of state, coming to this area, and where's the boat rent for? I would love to rent a boat. And they go into all these other areas and there's just not there's no numbers. There's so much opportunity.
Yes.
The neighboring towns and villages have capitalized on fishing tournaments. And they come down here to fish, but we're not getting the hotel and the restaurant. Do I do sooner?
Honey, I think you had your hand
We
up.
got enough real estate people in this town that maybe we could reach out to these people that own those properties down there and help market them to somebody else, because practically just are back, here we sit looking at. So maybe some of the realtors should get together and work with, contacting these people and see if they want to unload the property to somebody else for a different purpose. Not necessarily for us to buy it, but maybe somebody who has some interest in tourist trade. I'm not talking condos and stuff like that, but somebody who wants to work that waterfront. To have an opportunity to buy it. It's probably the tax write-off or something. That's all I can think of. But if we get somebody from here that show the interest, say, we will help you market it. And then maybe we get unloaded off that waterfront and get it public. But we need maybe people to know what they're talking about and then we'll deal with it. But I don't know, I don't think we've got to try to get those properties.
Marcia.
So that, the fishing tournaments, and I know everybody around us has got kind of wrapped up. But one thing we're missing out on is these fishermen are up here 2 to 3 weeks ahead of time, pre-fishing, all these tournaments. We need to hone in on that and capitalize on that, because they spend a lot of money around here. If we have something to draw them in and bring them in for the pre-fishing, even would give us a foot in the door, you know, that would be.
I think you had a
New
comment.
York State seems to be the biggest drawback of drawing private business in the state, between the regulations and the high taxes. Till something's done, nobody's gonna move in there with any significant private development. I don't care whether it's on the river or, and the city has to compete with the Virgin Port. Who's gonna move into the city where they can go tax free down there? City, that's probably get that from the state.
Virgin Port is restricted though.
Pardon?
The Virgin Port can be restricted. I've been trying to do business with them for years. Unfortunately, and this is not an unpopular comment, but unfortunately, the unions make it such that it's not affordable. Like for contractors and stuff to work in port, so there is opportunity for another commercial property.
Yes.
That's the best observation. There's an opportunity to talk to the people who have recently moved in. And they're.
Not all of them, but a lot of the members of the steering committee are new to Ogdensburg, new in the last 2 to 3 years.
And you know, you bring up a great point. Why is it that most of the committee members are new? Well, I think that's an opportunity. It's a good thing, but it really should be about 50.
But it's an opportunity to look at Ogdensburg with fresh eyes. I think, you know, we heard about some divisiveness, but I think it's weariness. I think there's been some comments, and I'm not sure people understand that DRI is an annual process. And every year we have to do it again. And, you know, it's like playing, or I always buy raffle tickets. I know I'm never doing it. It's never happened. It won't happen. But I do it anyway because there's hope, right? That maybe this time I will. So I think we forget that we lose our, we get weird, you know, because if you reject it every time, it's hard to take a breath and say, okay, let's just do it one more time. Come on, this time is going to be our year. So with new people, we're not tired yet. A little less energy, maybe some new eyes.
But listening to, you know, some of the folks who live here their entire lives, they know this. And that,
We don't want to lose that.
No, it is.
Yeah. That's wrong.
And I'm noticing, like I'm on committees for the city, and I'm seeing the same people in all of them.
Right.
So those of you who are here tonight, if you're not, I encourage you to reach out and see where you can help. Because it really does.
Another area we really need to look at is our study, young people here tonight. And that's, that's go back to the board, but, we've reached out to Clarkson, use Clarkson students, we, you know, reached out to other colleges and worked with them. Just getting kids in here, we worked with the school, and I just had thought of, we need to do more of that, get kids involved and get them involved in our committees and our missions and whatnot.
So that's a strength that we have, all those universities close to us. It's an opportunity to collaborate with those universities and the students that are there.
This was the smallest map. Maybe I should have made it the base map. Yes.
An opportunity we're missing out on is just a beach.
Yeah.
Lisbon has a okay beach. Waddington has a beautiful beach. Alice Bay has a beach. Everybody has a beach but us. And then we're missing maybe kayak rental, so something else at the beach. And then potentially a campground at the beach as well. We don't always have to go to Lisbon Beach or camping, you know? Maybe we could bring camping dogs for people.
Well, just to piggyback on that, I think there's a great opportunity to have some dockage for boats, on the St. Lawrence. Yeah, some transient docks would be great. We own a boat and we cannot dock anywhere in the city. We have to go to Prescott. Yeah, and I think a lot of people would use those docks. It's a great opportunity for us.
Would you mind reading us the threats? Because I can't read it that way.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. So we'll move to threats. What economic or political challenges do we face? Who is our greatest competition? And what are they doing? What factors are outside of our control?
They don't blame it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, some of the things that are out of our control, first of all, is we have one of the largest free trade zones down by the prison, down in the very port. So there's nobody that's gonna come here and want to pay taxes to New York State, Ogdensburg, in order to build something. We are a former manufacturing town, right? The fact is we've had, and there's no blame thrown around the room here. The thing is we've had a litany of a number of decisions that either were bad ones or have not panned out. I.e., for an example, would be the former oil tanks owned by Augsburg, right? They've never been held responsible for a thing. And we're talking about how we're going to maximize. That's where it needs to start. You have a boat launch right next to it, right? And the fact is, I don't know who owns it. Does anybody know who owns it? I don't know.
The boat launch or the Augsbury properties?
The former Augsbury property that apparently nobody can do anything with and nobody can build anything on it. I'm sorry if I'm late. We've already covered this.
That's okay.
But
Totally.
the thing is that right there is one of your answers. But again, it's the threats that we're going to have to overcome. And the thing is, there's a number of hurdles and there's a number of humps that some of my former, high school mates that are now in city government that are continuing to try to get over. Yeah. And the fact is that I think we're in a situation where you would have to start to think outside the box, but how? How? When you had a community, again, I grew up here, I still, I moved away and came back. And I tell my children, I'm like, listen, it's okay to get your education here, because that's one thing that you get here, top notch, right? The fact is modern day turns into a house of horrors, yeah. Right? Yeah. So the thing is, we've missed the boat with SUNY, right? And the fact is when it comes to this, how do we shift our focus and direct and turn, right? And look at what really needs to happen here. One thing is for a border community, right? We could make strides towards maybe some riverboat gambling. But the problem is, again, like my man right here is telling us, right? We've got the casinos right down the road, and then our next threat is Canada. Right? But they want you gambling on the international border. I mean, it doesn't matter in the reservation because they own all their own land. And so again, what do we bring? What do we bring here that is going to, because I think part of the problem with this city is one, as I said, with the decision making that has gone on in the past. I mean, and then we're talking decisions that were made before, we were in high school, so.
Well, Chris, when you and I talked, one of the things that you mentioned to me that I found was really interesting is that Augsburg for a long time has been known for housing humans.
Yeah,
the state hospital, the prisons, all of that.
we lost our identity.
Well, right, which to me means now is the time we need to rebrand this city.
But the
What do
thing
we wanna
is
be?
that we can't turn our backs on New York State and what they provided for us, because after the 1970s, I mean, this place was broken in half, repeated over numerous decades. And it's nobody's fault, but the people that made those decisions, most of them are gone. So what do we do? Where?
That's
And that's the biggest reason why I'm here is I really don't have much of a dog in the fight for the simple fact that I'm retired, right? I'm almost 60 years old. But the fact is that if we want something, then it's gonna take a lot, and it's not feasibility studies that are gonna do it for us right now. It's what's happening right here. It's the thought process.
Hey, Chris. Sorry, we're neighbors. I'm gonna call you out.
Oh, no.
Yep, because you just said, you don't have a dog in the fight. You're retired. You have time. To
I
come.
don't.
But you don't understand, like, I've got
Some of the other people in here have the same issue. I know Mrs. Klein over there. You know, I've got elderly parents. I've got all their properties that all have to be rebuilt. And it's a one-man show. I would love nothing more to be able to be available. I was just gonna come here, watch and listen, but I can't keep my mouth shut. You know what I'm saying? I've been keeping my mouth shut for 25 years.
No, because it's been going on forever. Okay, just move on.
Wendy,
I think one of the threats is that there are a lot of people mired in the past, that we have clung to the past, whether it's how we define downtown, it's how we define our problem, it's how we define who we are, what the state did to us, what ExxonMobil did to us. Like, that is a real threat to moving forward.
Exactly.
And I think at some point, we have to draw the line and say, there ain't nothing we can do about what happened here. All we can do is learn from that, not repeat it, and figure out how we move forward. And that's tonight's focus, is to say, where do we, want to spend our next level of energy and money and time. And it's this kind of conversation, which I think is great, that sparks the ideas, that gets you enthused again. So I think a real threat is the clinging to that past.
well, that's a great segue into talking about the boundary, but I do want to address the couple hands that I saw up. So any more threats?
It just sounds to me like we are our own threat. No matter what we do to the exterior, there's still, that threat still remains. Of course, it's a professional
Okay.
Hey, so, I'm not getting political, but,
It's all political.
the, other surrounding cities, towns in Minnesota that are on the river are probably getting funding that we're not, because we're not doing it. And so, I think that's a, if other people are ahead of us in the community,
Mhm.
because they've defined and they have done this and they have new this and they have that, all this. We lack the opportunity.
Yes.
One positive note for any alien. We had the Seaway International Festival. I asked the Department of Public Works Festival, where's the Canadian flag? This is what he told me. He said we didn't want to order one this year. We couldn't afford it. I would pay for a Canadian flag. There's 2 straight flag poles. You could put a Canadian flag and maybe a New York State flag. And they said, then he teased me. He said, I could go to a boat cruise tonight or come here. He said, stop bitching and go. There I am.
Yes.
Sorry about this, but can we go back to the swab a bit, because I remember something that I thought we should discuss. sort of a combination weakness, but it could be a lot of opportunities.
Sure.
And that's the weather.
Yeah.
You know, there are a lot of people who wouldn't plan to go and live somewhere if they felt they had to escape for 4 months of the year.
Yeah.
That they could afford to 4 months of the year. And yet our winter, as brutal as it is gorgeous. In my opinion. The icicles and the trees and not as much the last few years. And as opportunities, one thing that has always surprised me is that with all this snow that so many people want, just because we can't offer downhill skiing, I've never known why we didn't really go for being a center for winter cross-country skiing with all those state parks and all those fields that don't bloom in winter and all this. So I just didn't want us to forget the weather.
I should mention that you and I have lived in Helsinki, both in the love, and listen to here's the
Well, so we can keep working on strengths and weaknesses, but I do want to move us along and be respectful of everybody's time. Thank you, Joanne, very much. I appreciate your assistance. To kind of get us started thinking about downtown boundary, which is one of our goals, I'm going to take a couple minutes and talk a little bit about the DRI specifically and the guidelines that the state gives us for putting together our application. But while I'm speaking, feel free to look at the handout that was provided along with the agenda that has a couple of as an individual map, like the one you see here in front, that will allow you to make your own doodles on where you think downtown should be to help kind of guide the discussion as we move along. So, and again, feel free to get up if you'd like to stretch your legs, take a look at the map. There are some things that you may not be able to read from your seats. So I just want to start this section of talking about the definition of a boundary by talking a little bit about what we've done in the past and what New York State asks applicants, communities looking to apply for funding to do. So the Downtown Revitalization Initiative application process, as Wendy pointed out, is an annual opportunity, or has been since 2016, through the governor's office. And it asks communities to have engagements like this evening to talk about where the city should make investments, specifically $10 million. And that dollar amount for, fun fact, has not changed since 2016. So $10 million in 2016 went a lot farther than it does in 2024. And really thinking about when these projects are going to be implemented, 2025 and beyond, keep that in mind also. One of the primary factors that the state looks for communities to illustrate and articulate in the applications is that the downtown not only has community support, but is concise, compact, and walkable. This year, they provided the additional sort of guidance that walkable and concise downtown should be 20 to no more than 25 minutes. So you should be able to tour your downtown, take a walking tour of your downtown within 20 to 25 minutes. So if at any point this evening you have the opportunity to take a look at the map that's up here in the center, you'll see that there's three little sort of inset maps, and which you cannot see from your seats, and those that may be attending online, feel free to open up the PDF and take a look at it. But what I've illustrated within each of those inset maps is the top map is kind of the walking tour of the boundary that we submitted in 2023. And that equates to about a 1 hour walk. There is also a 30-minute walk illustrated, and then also a 20-minute walk. So for those of you, just again for some context, we should be looking at a 20-minute walk is about 1 mile for the average person. You can typically walk 3 miles in 1 hour. So that's to help you kind of get a sense of the kind of geography that we should be looking at. That's really the question at stake here is where can we define a walkable downtown where we can complete a tour in about 20 to 25 minutes. Yeah.
Andrea, I just, something that struck me, it might have been a slide before this. The boundary right now is currently defined, goes all the way to the Spring Street Bridge. And I'm just wondering if, like, some of that neighborhood right there is residential. Would it be better to cut out that area and put a little bit more over by New York Avenue in that area over there? You know, so if you're looking at that picture right there, and we see where the Spring Street Bridge is, that little nook, or so to speak, at the bottom, would it be better to cut that out and incorporate more of a cheese plant area, things like that? Is the cheese plant currently incorporated in that?
Yeah, so I don't know for what you can see of this pointer.
Yes.
This area here where the hand is 30 Main Street, the cheese plant, sorry. And this area, so again, I think maybe the most important thing that in terms of a response I have for you is the Marina District is one of 4 sub-districts that was previously defined in community planning efforts, specifically the Brownfield Opportunity Area planning that the city completed in 2016. So the definition of this area, which has been included in previous applications, is based on the Brownfield Opportunity Area. It does not mean that that is what we have to end up submitting, but that's why, as a conversation starter, that is how those particular boundaries have been delineated.
Right. The thing that caught me when we were sort of defining what we're looking at as a downtown was the term density and being able to incorporate a lot of people. Whereas that one neighborhood is more of a residential, unless we were looking at doing something with boat launch on the Oswegatchie or something like that. It's kind of a trail system, other than the neighborhood. That's why I was kind of throwing it out there, maybe to change that boundary just slightly and incorporate something where we can get a little bit more density of people. It's just a thought, and I'm not on the committee, but I was questioning why the neighborhood extends down, maybe to put it somewhere else. You know, and that's something for the committee to look at. You know.
Yeah, so for orientation, I guess, for those of you that may not be familiar, this is the Spring Street Bridge.
Yeah.
This is park space. Doesn't at this moment have a name, but it is the trailhead for the Maple City Trail, which extends south in this direction. This is New York Avenue, this westernmost boundary, if you will. And then this kind of extends over to incorporate Brown Street, Main Street, and kind of looks at natural boundaries using roads and right-of-ways as to delineate the overall boundary at this time.
I'm glad that New York campus. I think that's good. That's important.
So the Board of Health is included in there as well?
Yes.
So I'd just be curious, since we're on this slide in particular, and based on Councilor Scamperly's question, this is a suggestion. This is certainly not the end-all, be-all boundary. We're hoping to kind of take in feedback and get to a final boundary, but just simply by a show of hands, I would be curious how many people would agree with a boundary somewhat in line with what is shown in red. That's great. Okay, we're done. Thank you for coming. Really appreciate it. Okay, so well, that's great. So then I'll just skip, before I leave the microphone, I will just come over here and move to the next little map that I have to talk about projects. Hopefully y'all can see that. So this is, I would again encourage you to come up and take a closer look at this. The images are kind of inspiring, so I hope that, please come up, take a look at it, feel free. So this is the Marina District. It aligns with what you see here on the TVs, and it pulls out the projects specifically that were submitted in the initial call for projects. So there is a project on Brown Street in which the property owners are proposing a bit of a wine bar, mixed use type proposal. That is the top left. 119 West River Street, the former Ramada Inn, Holiday Inn property. There is a proposal from At the Docks to redevelop that into a new hotel and also mixed use project to include some apartments. There's a proposal to relocate the brewery, once to be located at 17 Main Street, now to be located at 110 Lake Street, and to be named Small City Brewing instead of River Street Brewing Company, submitted by Mr. Hosmer. And then 30 Main Street is really in the heart of the Marina District. This is 3.3 acres that is the former cheese manufacturing plant, currently under demolition. The city received $1.8 million through Restore New York to do demolition and cleanup of that property, which is underway now. And the goal is ultimately to have that really be redeveloped. So I'm hopeful that through the strategic planning initiative that would follow an award of a DRI, that we would work through really kind of some community visioning and feasibility studies to promote and implement redevelopment of that particular site. And there's just an example there of what it could look like. So those 4 projects were all submitted, and there could be others. In addition to those projects, the next part that comes is really doing some targeted outreach to property owners within what does become the defined downtown for the application, not only for projects, but also for letters of support, which any of you here tonight could supply. And developing budgets, developing renderings to help catch the eye of the reviewers, and hopefully all towards the goal of increasing our likelihood of receiving an award. Also on the map, there is the delineated historic downtown area. Again, not to forget about that area. It's an area that we do have projects in, and there are parcels outlined. There are about 6 properties within that area that also submitted projects, some of which meet the threshold to be included in a DRI, many of which don't. The primary threshold for projects is that the project in and of itself must be at least $75,000, and private property owners must contribute 25%, commit to and illustrate a commitment of 25% of the project costs at the time of application. That was not provided for the majority of projects within the historic downtown area. And that's part of the reason why we're kind of shifting focus, in addition to the requirement that the area must be compact and walkable within 20 to 25 minutes. And the previous map really would show you that that cannot really incorporate both sides of the river. David.
Do you want to talk about city projects in this part of the DRI? And skating or arena is going to be considered part of the DRI?
Yeah, so in addition to private projects like those that I mentioned, the DRI application and ultimate implementation and award can include not-for-profit projects as well as municipal projects. So within the Marina District, one of the city's primary needs is to make some improvements to the arena, which is 141 West River Street, the Lockwood Arena. It's a project that we have submitted for in the past through various funding applications, but we haven't received funding for yet. We know we need to make some improvements to the building, specifically to the HVAC, It's very cold in the winter, which makes for great ice. It's very hot in the summer, which doesn't make for great civic space to hold events. So some adjustments there, as well as some modifications to locker rooms to help make it more of a destination and support year-round events is something that we would look at putting forth in an application. In addition to that, as I mentioned previous, marketing and branding are eligible projects, as well as streetscape projects. So those are also things that we would put forth in this to help create and establish a sort of unique vibe and a new identity for this particular area. But I would be very happy to hear from all of you in terms of what you'd like to see downtown or what downtown means to you. If you have suggestions for projects in this area, or if we're totally off base with the area, feel free to give that feedback as well. Yes?
I just have a question. You mentioned the historic space that you had said earlier. What section is under the historic space?
So this is the area that we've sort of defined as the historic Old Town. This includes the downtown mall, the library, the Remington. It comes essentially from Isabella Street through to.
Now, is that going to be, or did you say it's not going to be part of the DRA funding?
So conceivably, if we go with this as our downtown area, this is one of the areas that we have designated as ideal for New York State Main Street funding, which would support projects like rehabilitation of mixed-use spaces, facade improvements, signage, also streetscape, smaller scale, which seems to be more in line with the projects that were submitted by the property owners within this district.
No, and there's no way that you would, like Dan had said with the map, moving some of those edges down and incorporating that historic, because you said 20-25 miles, and there's a footbridge there, right?
20-25 minutes, right. And so if you look at, and it's hard to see, but this kind of outline, maybe I can draw, maybe you'll see it better. So this is the sort of historic Old Town area, and then this is obviously the Marine District area. And if you walk from here through the downtown mall, across the walking bridge, and then again, you have to kind of complete a tour of the district in order to incorporate all of the projects. This ends up being about a 30-plus minute walk.
And was that the guideline that had to be within, you said it's 20
to 25 minutes is the guideline from New York State for your downtown to be submitted.
That's going to be 12 blocks, roughly. About 12 city blocks to the line.
Yes.
So if I remember correctly, some of the feedback that was received from our previous applications was that the downtown area that had been defined was too large.
Right.
And they keep telling us that if we want a shot at getting some of this money, we have to shrink it down. And we have to figure out.
So what I'm saying is, instead of including so much of New York Ave, because yeah, a bunch of it is residential and there's a hospital, and why not shrink it down to where the cheese plant was, push it forward down closer to the water area, like include the marina section, but then that's maybe where it ends. Maybe the cheese plant and the Lockwood is kind of the area we focus on, and then push out. Because we wanted to utilize the water space, right? I mean, that's also a possibility. It's a great footbridge, and then if we could revitalize the movie theater and the other places down there, it would put them in walking distance to do other things. Because what are you doing on the Ave? I mean, I live there, what are you doing?
Well, so,
right?
So one of the projects that isn't listed here is the Downtown Revitalization Initiative application allows for, and most communities that apply for and ultimately get the funding do include a small business improvement portion of their application, which designates $600,000. That's the maximum amount that you can put for this particular project. And that goes to, essentially, it's like a mini Main Street program within your DRI. So that goes for this, it can support smaller projects that all are within your downtown that don't meet that $75,000 threshold. So that would address small businesses, potentially on New York Avenue, apartment facilities, all sort of creating, because one of the things we have to think about, which is something that I think maybe Oncover also struggles with, is visibility and gateways to our downtown, whether it's here, there, or even our St. Lawrence River waterfront properties. People that are mostly coming to our community are coming from Route 37, and so they're gonna have to come through Main Street or come down New York Avenue, and we want that to be an appealing travel and not somebody like, oh, I have gone the wrong way and turn around. So improvements along New York Avenue and small projects to enhance those businesses and those residential uses could be completed through that small project portion of the DRI. But mostly the reason of focusing over here is really just the proposal to focus in this particular area is really simply guided by the feedback we've received on our previous application, as well as just the projects that we've received. This is $10 million, which seems like a lot, but $10 million, just these 4 projects alone, I mean, not even talking about 30 Main Street, is over $14 million over projects. So really finding a way that the projects that do get done can create a transformative impact is what New York State is looking for. And the bigger the area, the more diluted that impact becomes. But that is why we have identified this downtown area, and why we have identified a plan for addressing the needs as we know them for these particular property owners and these buildings, because it's an ideal fit for the New York City Main Street program. Most of the projects are smaller in nature and focus on facade improvements and smaller interior improvements, which meet the exact definition of that. So that's something that we would, and I have proposed working on over 2025 to be prepared to submit in July of 2025. That program, the DRI may come and go, but the New York State Main Street program is a pretty tried and true program, not likely to go away anytime soon. So it's a great opportunity to also address the needs of the historic downtown area. Yes.
And, you know, some of the feedback that we got, well, most of the feedback that we got, even here tonight, was detention on the river. This grabbed a lot of the office.
By having both the DRI and Main Street or the historic, I call it historic, but having that and the piggyback what she's saying here is ultimately, you know, it's conjoined grant process, and that allows that footbridge to be able to bring back over to the other side of the Oswegatchie to enhance the Remington, to highlight the Remington, the library, the historic library park, you know, the library, all of it that comes with it, to include the city marina and the Visky Center, and ultimately at the end of the day, you know, really festival, you know, which is a revenue stream for the city of Arlington, right? So when you can kind of get these things kind of rolling, and that's why if anybody watched the meeting on Monday night, Ingrid had a great presentation. And if you haven't watched it, I suggest you go and watch it, because the presentation that she's got going and what she's done so far and her vision going forward along with the administration is pretty solid. And that's the draw there. When you can bring in that historic aspect and then secure that DRI, which is it's not a fix-all by any stretch of the imagination, but it's surely a great start. A wonderful booster shot. And it's, you know, like I said, if you haven't watched if you didn't see your presentation Monday night, I suggest you watch it.
Yes.
We're the only city, American city, along the banks of the St. Lawrence River. No other city, no other community in St. Lawrence County got at Christmas time, sing the song, city sidewalks, busy sidewalks. Holiday song. I challenge you, when you go to this building tonight, I walk all out frequently. I challenge you, walk this building tonight. Go down the street towards Washington Street, it's one of the worst pieces of sidewalk in this entire city. I challenge you to go over on State Street. Walk on State Street, it's so uneven, and there are bumps and humps, and I trip very easily. If you're gonna develop downtown city sidewalk, downtown city Augsburg, I don't have to pay for it, I don't care. Somebody needs to improve the sidewalk, in my opinion.
Can I just follow up on what Mike said? The definition of downtown is this area on the left, which is needed for the proposal. That's what you have to define the service, the company.
The DRI.
Yep.
But that's to get the money. There's no reason why we wouldn't have half a dozen downtown.
Yeah.
Really isn't going well.
But we have one more, which Remington is, maybe we should call it the intellectual downtown.
No, you're absolutely right. And so I guess maybe this isn't even the best slide. Maybe it is this one, which is it's a lot to take in, I think, at this level. But just to show that I think the city does acknowledge that there's more than just focusing on downtown. And we have businesses in more than just the Marina District or historic Old Town. And we want to support all of them. It can be difficult to do everything all at once. And so it's imperative that we develop a plan and a vision for how to provide the support that all of our businesses and property owners need and want. And so that's sort of what that presentation that I did give a high level overview of this evening lays out, sort of a plan of let's collectively focus on a DRI for the short term, defining a downtown for the purpose of submitting an application, and then simultaneously work with the property owners who have already expressed an interest and a need for funding through the New York State Main Street program. And in 2026 and beyond, work through potentially the New York Forward program or subsequent New York State Main Street programs in other areas of the city. Now, obviously, this requires that business owners and property owners want to participate and are willing to get together, because a Main Street program doesn't work because one property owner wants funding. It works when you have 5, 10 business owners all within a small area, which can be in a Main Street program, maybe just 2 blocks. So that is a challenge, having identifying those types of projects and property owners with a real desire and the means to go forward with a project. So there is a little bit of a vision here to address the entire city in little bits and chunks over time.
I have another song for Augsburg. Downtown is a place you ought to be tonight. Downtown.
Well, you should listen to what Texas Fox.
Marsha.
You're talking about letters of support. Are you going to do a push to reach outside of this group to get those letters of support? And would they count if they came from school children? Where they can't come out of school?
Yeah, and they don't even go towards our 20-page maximum application. So it would be great to flood New York State. So we will develop a form letter, but we have also heard from other regions and co-chairs who have received funding in other areas that while a letter of support is great, the more tailored and specific it is to your group, your interest, your property, the better it is, because people are actually reading your letters of support. So we will develop a template that certainly anybody can use and hopefully can edit to better suit, their support. But it will at least cover, kind of funding parameters, our goal, vision, et cetera. And then we would be happy to include any and all letters of support. So the deadline, I don't even know that I mentioned this. The first deadline that we have is not required, but strongly encouraged by New York State, which is to submit a letter of intent that defines your downtown and tells them that you are considering submitting an application. And that deadline is September 6th. I know that council wants to submit, and I intend to submit a letter of intent on behalf of the city, but we have to have the downtown defined, and you have to know how many parcels and how many acres at the time that you submit that letter of intent. So that is paramount to the conversation this evening, to making sure that we at least have the area correctly defined. The second important deadline is the submission deadline, which is October 18th. So those are the two deadlines that I'm working on, and that your feedback helps ensure that we meet those deadlines.
I think the one thing that, I don't know if it's been said, but the focus on the Marina District as the downtown district is that it then becomes a magnet for future development. Because once, and you see this, anyone who's done any kind of pioneering into old neighborhoods, you know, once someone does something to that neighborhood, other people start to take a look. It also helps us get the money for historic Old Town, that then becomes also a draw, because now actually there might be a reason to stay for the weekend in Ivanhoe. So I think that intense focus and the kinds of projects that are being proposed are going to beget more development and more eyes on them. So I think that's the beauty of the, you know, the focus look we have on this year.
Snowball.
Yeah. There you go.
You have things to go.
Yeah.
Excuse me, if I can add, a community who gets a DRI gets priority points on future projects and future grant funding. So getting a DRI could actually exacerbate that snowball effect that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yes.
Andrew, what do you need to say on September 6th? This is what we're going to get going.
Yeah, I mean, the show of hands was great, but there have been comments about shrinking it, moving it up and kind of moving it over. So again, I would encourage all of you to complete the handout. We have made it available online, and we'll take any and all comments and suggestions into consideration. Unfortunately, the next city council meeting is not until September 9th. But I would say watch our Facebook page, City of Ogdensburg, and also we try to cross-post things with Ogdensburg City Recreation, where we will continue to accept feedback and keep everybody updated on what we are doing with regard to the DRI and our current application. Yes, Mayor Tooley.
As we wind down, I want to thank all of you who are attending tonight, both in person and remotely, and especially thank you for your input and comments. You've certainly given a lot of information, a lot of opinion for the committee, staff, and city council to consider as collectively we try to move the city of Ogdensburg forward. And many of the comments tonight, are beyond the scope of the focus of DRI, which is a good thing. As Andrew was emphasizing, we're trying to, as a city, trying to find ways to find financial assistance for businesses throughout the city in an effort to help them to grow, repair, infrastructure, things of that nature. And my hope is that the strategic planning committee is a living committee. That this is not a committee that's going to stop its work once we submit a DRI application in October. And there might be opportunity, to adjust the numbers. I think, talking about the membership, and it's not 50-50. I think part of the reason for that is, to make the committee manageable, a limit was set at 50 committee members. And many of the committee members who came forward initially are new to the city. That's a good thing, okay? But there might be others, who might be able to provide input, who are longer term residents who have some history that you spoke to. So But I'm excited that this came into place. I commend you for your leadership, working with this committee to bring us to where we are tonight. Excited about what the long-term possibilities might be and opportunities might be for the city. And it's going to take time, you know. And so stay active, be patient, and again, thank you for tonight.
Well, thank you all so much. Oh, yes, please. The letter of intent, yep.
Do you have to commit to that 25-minute walk area? Is that part of your initial letter, or is that going to be farther down?
So in our, this is new this year. It's a portal submission. And so you do have to define your downtown. At the time, like I said, the letter or the intent to apply is not required. It is strongly encouraged. That's the language from the state. So I think it is in the city's best interest to submit it. It seems like there is some consensus, and I hope that in reviewing your assignments out here, maybe we'll make some modifications. Like I said, this is based specifically and solely on the Marina District as it was previously defined through community feedback in the Brownfield Opportunity Area. Based on project submissions that we have received earlier this spring. So certainly can change. There's nothing that ties us to those exact boundaries, but we do have to define it in our intent to apply if we do submit an intent to apply. Yes, sir.
So I'll have to be in one segment, or can somebody on the west side?
Well, the downtown boundary as it's defined and in the application really needs, it can't change. Once we set it, we have to work on that boundary, and it can't really change for this application. Well, it can. I mean, the downtown can be anywhere we determine it to be. But what I tried to illustrate in the map that you can't see right now is that by going across the river, you really do add a significant amount of time, and you really can then only capture that kind of downtown mall area. And not the Remington, not the library, certainly not some of the projects we've had in previous applications out on Franklin Street. That is where we get into that hour walking distance, which is what we've submitted in the past. Every time we've submitted, we have submitted a very large area, which when you kind of do a walking tour through those boundaries, you end up at about an hour, and the requirement is 20 minutes. Yes.
A city alive is worth the drive. The city that's north, hold on, close the doors.
So happy to, yes.
Just a little bit food for thought about the old city.
Mm-hmm.
In regards to the Remington and down to the river that we're saying, we want them to walk down there, all of that. I'm just picturing somebody coming into town, being where we're going to want to do the work, which is a wonderful idea. It's amazing that you come up with. But what I'm thinking is, if they're walking across that walking bridge, right? And they come into the old city, the old blocks, and they look the way they do on their way to Remington, what is going to be their thought? I'm just picturing that. So
Right.
I just wanted to throw that out.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the response to that is two things. One, that is an area that we want to focus on. Whether we receive this DRI or not, that is an area that we are already talking about with council about an application in July of 2024 through the New York State Main Street program that, if awarded, would actually start being implemented in 2026. In addition to that, we already have an application submitted that we submitted in August through the Green Resiliency Grant Program, which isn't focused at all on the buildings, but is entirely focused on improving the parking area and making it more conducive to hosting events, being more aesthetically pleasing, and paramount, reducing runoff through the integration of green space, rain gardens, bioretention, trees. So the parking lot itself, through that application, would presumably become a little bit more appealing as well. Well, feel free to come up, take a look at the maps, flip through them. Happy to chat with any of you. And if you did complete your little homework assignments, please do leave them. They will be very helpful to me and the Strategic Planning Committee. So thank you all for coming. I hope you have a lovely evening. Yeah, you can. What were you trying to watch? Not online yet, but I will make it online. Yeah, I'll post it on our page. And then we'll also so that is the I mean,
Well, that's fine.
So that really is what the kind of was intended to illustrate is that it's what I talked about to you earlier. Yeah. So I talked about the projects that we implemented and then where we're going. Yeah, and then where we're going. No, I mean, it's true. We need that.